On Tuesday, September 9th, the great state of California has its 175th birthday. To mark it, we've asked H.W. Brands, one of the preeminent historians of American history, author of 30 different books, including The Age of Gold, which, if you want to know how California became a state and how it all started, that's as good a book as you can find on the topic. He joins us from the University of Texas in Austin, where he's a professor of history. Mr. Brands, thanks for taking the time. It's an honor to have you on. I really appreciate it. How important was California to the national treasury following the gold rush? And was that why it was admitted to the Union so quickly? We were never a territory.
No, California was not a territory. It went directly to statehood. It wasn't so much because of the gold. Actually, it was because of the sudden peopling of California. People expected, when California was acquired by the United States at the end of the war with Mexico, people thought that it would take half a century to fill up California with enough people to justify being a state. But then gold was discovered, and 100,000 people arrived in California in just the space of a couple of years. And so all those people in California said, well, look, we've got enough people to be a state. Let's be a state. And so that's what really prompted the admission of California. They really were banging on the door to get in. Now, the fact that California included a bunch of gold, that made a huge difference to the American economy. So that was a bonus, but that wasn't the driving force.
It was the Compromise of 1850. California came in as a free state. That was, and I know during the Civil War, from all that I've read, and you've pointed this out, the Confederacy lusted over the gold that had come out of California and the silver mines of Nevada.
So there were a lot of Southerners who went to California with the gold rush, and they took their Southern sympathies with them. And when secession occurred in the 1860s, a lot of people in California thought that California itself might secede from the Union, not necessarily to join the Confederacy, but to become an independent republic. And this was before a transcontinental railroad, and it took a month at the least to get from the east coast of the United States to California. So a lot of Californians said, well, we're far enough away, and we got all this gold, we could really make it on our own as an independent country. But it was that prompted the Republican government of Abraham Lincoln to promise a transcontinental railroad to California. And as soon as that promise came through, then the California said, now we're sticking around. We'll stay with the Union.
The narrative of late has been that the United States stole California and the Southwest from Mexico. And you go into that in detail in your book. But speak to us about the mistakes the Mexican capital made. Because there was the Californios, there was starting a separation even before the U.S. got involved between those who were here and the Mexican government in Mexico City.
Well, the fundamental reason that Mexico was not able to hold on to California was the same reason it lost Texas and New Mexico and what would be Arizona. Namely, that there just weren't enough Mexicans who were willing to go live there. And if you don't have people on the ground, it's pretty hard to hold against a new wave of people coming in. So when all of the Americans, and I should add people from many other countries, entered California during the gold rush, it really emphasized why it was that Mexico had not been able to hold on to California. Mexico had already ceded California to the United States just before that happened. But it underscored why it was that Mexico couldn't hold on to California. There just weren't enough Californians there. I mean, there weren't enough Mexicans there. And the interlopers would come in and they'd take control of the place.
And California, even from the start, I mean, you had the dreamers who came in for gold, but then they were replaced by Carl Laemmle of Universal and the Titans of Hollywood and then Silicon Valley. So California, to a large degree, has been fundamental not only to the American economy, but into the sense of entrepreneurship. When the governor says it's where the future starts first, there's something to that.
There's no question about that. And in particular, the appetite of Californians for taking risk. And this becomes very clear with venture capital industry and the rise of Silicon Valley. But California was built on this big gamble. Nearly everybody who went to California searching for gold realized that maybe they'd become rich, maybe they wouldn't. They would go off in the gold fields, and two miners would be there, and one would reach down into the freezing water and pick up just a rock, and the other one would reach down and pick up a gold nugget. And there didn't seem to be any particular moral difference or any other kind of difference between the two, just dumb luck. And so what Californians learned was try, and if you fail, try again. If you fail, try again. If you fail again. And of course, the model of the venture capital industry of Silicon Valley was You make 20 bets. 19 of them will be losers, but the 20th will repay you so well that you become rich in the process.
And last question. We're looking at a point in history where there's this extremely, sometimes acrimonious divide between the state of California and the federal government in Washington, D.C. To those who think this is unprecedented, it's not unprecedented. There have been conflicts for generations between states and the federal government, and that included California at multiple points.
Oh, there's no question about it. In fact, the admission of California was one of the proximate causes of the Civil War, because North and South couldn't decide whether California ought to get in, or if California did get in as a state, what the conditions would be and what the payoff would be for the other side. So California, if there was a single wedge that started driving the country apart in the 1850s, it was the admission of California in September 1850.
Very good. H.W. Brands, the book is The Age of Gold, one of dozens of absolutely stunning scholarship. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Delighted to be with you.
We'll have some final comments after this.